Hello, so nice to see you again in the third session of our discussion on polygraphy. So as you can see on your screen, this was the last topic that I introduced. It is known as the methods of detecting deception, meaning it's the list of what is being used in as far as detection of deception is concerned. So the first one is this devices which record the psychophysiological response. So it says here devices, so meaning the instrument which are being used to record psychophysiological responses. So as you can see here, the word psycho, and then the physiological means the mind, and then the physiological means the physical activity of our body. So anything that uses device or machine that records what's going on in the mind and together with what's going on in the physical body of the subject, then that falls on number one method. Then another method that is being also used is drug that inhibit the inhibitor, hypnotism by simply observing, or we also have scientific interrogation, and of course by simply confession. Now, since this would be discussed more in details in the coming slides, we'll just escape this, and also the hypnotism, and then this one also will be discussed, and the rest also will be discussed. So those are methods of deception detection that we will be discussing in the next slides. So stay with me. Okay, so first one is recording the psychophysiological response. So this is what I was mentioning a while ago, that what is being recorded here is what's going on in the mind and what's going on in the physical body. So it says here, the nervous control of the human body includes the central nervous system, which includes brain and the spinal cord, and the autonomic or regulating nervous system, sympathetic and parasympathetic. The central nervous system primarily controls the motor and sensory functions that occur at or above the threshold. It may be voluntary. So for those who have no background about physiology, this might be difficult for us to understand. However, it simply talks about the vital parts of our body, particularly the brain, the spinal cord, the heart, and including the vital part of our body, which is also included the liver and etc. So these are interconnected with each other, in which if one of them is affected by any stimuli, they give signal to each other, and there's some sort of malfunctioning that may take place whenever one of them notice something unusual coming from outside. So to explain further, we will see how it will work when we talk about the central nerve, or the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. So I will be talking more on that also in the coming slides. So we have here what we call as the autonomic nervous system, which is still part of the central nervous system, which acts as self-regulating autonomic response of the body. So from the word autonomic, automatic response, meaning you don't need to command or give signal to your or to the part of your body so that it will move. It will automatically respond to any stimuli. We have here what we call as autonomic nervous system, which is composed of two complementary branches. So the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system acting opposite to each other. So we have part of our body that are, like balancing each other. So they are found in almost all parts of our body. They are part of our eyes, our other vital parts, and they like kind of balance each other. Yeah, they are contradicting each other for the good of our body. So we will see also more on that later on. Sympathetic and parasympathetic. So this is it. It's really hard to understand without background on medicine. Okay, but let us try to understand in relation to polygraphy. So we have here in our eyes, so if you can see the drawing of our eyes, so we have the parasympathetic nerves in our eyes, and we also have sympathetic nerves in our eyes as well. So meaning they are here. So these are called autonomic nervous system. Now how does it work? Okay, but let me show you another one. So the heart also. So I'm sorry, here the heart and this one. So in our heart we see their parasympathetic, and then we also see their sympathetic nerves. So how does this work, and as far as lie detection is concerned? So imagine that this is the head, this is the head, okay, and there is eyes, and there is mouth, nose, and this is the ear. Alright, so just stay with me and let's see. Okay, so of course this is the, yeah, that's it. So it's already complete body. Okay, alright, so what's going on here is we mentioned before that our stimuli is what? Question, right? So question is our stimuli. So imagine that this subject is, this drawing is our subject. He is the one that will be examined. What you're going to do as examiner is you ask question. Now, if the question is threatening, felt to be threatening to this guy, you ask this, and then it enters here in the sense of hearing, and he noticed that the question is against him because maybe he committed a crime, and then the question is, are you the one who killed the victim? And that question is against him. So what will happen is this parasympathetic, these sympathetic nerves will now begin to work. So all of this part here, all, you see, the liver, the heart, gallbladder, all of them will going to work. There is a nerve in the heart, in the eyes, in the mouth, in the, yeah. So all of them are there. They are there. So the nerves in the heart will gonna work and flight or fight or flight. Will I fight or will I run? So that's the basic response of a person who is in danger. So what's going to happen now is there will be deletion of pupils, and then inhibition of salivation, increase in heartbeat. So what do you mean by this? Deletion of the pupils, and inhibition, so meaning there is no saliva, and the deletion is like the iris of your eyes will become smaller, but become stronger. So the heartbeat increase to produce more blood, relax airways, okay, because you are in danger, so they are all ready, and then all glands will be ready to secrete, all vital parts will release glands that your body needed. So that is what is going to happen. That's why this sympathetic is called as the like an accelerator of our body, because they initiate the movement in the body, so they become very active. And also you see there is also inhibition of the activity, so meaning the stomach will stop grinding, and so you don't feel hungry already when there is danger, if you have noticed that. And then however, the problem here is if this sympathetic nervous system will be very active for a long time, this whole body also suffers. So for example, the stomach stop digesting, then what would be the energy of the body, or if all glands are already released and consumed by the body, then the body for a long time will become also weak. That is why we have what we call as parasympathetic, because it balances all actions of the sympathetic nerves. So here there is inhibition of saliva, but on the parasympathetic it stimulates saliva. So the parasympathetic balance the sympathetic. If the sympathetic nerves is increasing so much the heartbeat, the parasympathetic will slow it, and there is inhibition here of the stomach activity. This parasympathetic stimulate activity, so they balance each other. Now another thing that I would like you to see here is while the sympathetic nerves is very active, that is where polygraph components also will record. But for a long period of time where the sympathetic nerves is working and parasympathetic, so also the danger, then this parasympathetic will begin to work, and that's the time the body will start to calm down, so there's nothing to record already. But for polygraph test, no problem, because once you ask the question, the components simultaneously record also the activities of the sympathetic, activity of the body. So it's the sympathetic that activates the body to work, so that there is something that the polygraph also will record. And this also is one of the reasons why is it possible the expert believe that it's possible for deception to be detected. Okay, so I stayed long already here, but I hope you got the point. I might not be able to elucidate very well, but that is how we relate these sympathetic nerves and parasympathetic nerves to polygraph tests. So this is a further explanation of the topic on sympathetic and parasympathetic or physiological activities. So when a person is under influence of physical or emotional anger, excitement, fear, light detection, etc., stimuli, the sympathetic will dominate and override the parasympathetic. Thus, there will be changes in the heartbeat. So this is what I was already mentioning a while ago, that the the sympathetic, when it notices danger outside, it becomes very active, and then the parasympathetic will be dominated, will be override, so meaning they seems paralyzed when there is danger, and so there will be increase in many vital parts activity of the body. So the parasympathetic nervous system works to restore things. Yeah, so this is it. Parasympathetic will restore the work of the sympathetic. So the recording of some of the psychophysiological reaction of a subject when he is subjected to a series of questions and scientific interpretation by trained experts are the basis of the test. Yeah, so the recording of the psychophysiological reactions, which refers to the blood pressure, pulse rate, and others, we call them also not only physiological activities, but the proper term actually is this one, the psychophysiological reaction, because what is affected when there is an stimuli like the question to a subject that is threatening to him is the mind, and then from the mind it also gives signals to the body, which is the sympathetic, caused by the sympathetic nerves. So that is why that thing happened. Okay, so that is the so-called psychophysiological test. And though this is not popular, okay, but this is one of the possible method of detecting deception. We call it word association test. So what will happen here is a list of stimulus and non-stimulus words are read to the subject, who is instructed to answer as quickly as possible. So what's the method here? Stimulus and non-stimulus, meaning relevant and non-relevant words will be read to the subject, and the subject will be instructed to answer yes or no as quickly as they can. So unlike the lie detector, the time interval between the words uttered by the examiner and the answer the subject is recorded, because in the word association test it's not actually relevant if the answer is yes or no. What is being recorded and observed here is the span of time in answering. So for example, if the subject was asked to answer a question like, are you the one who killed the victim? And then he responded by saying no immediately, that would be interpreted as truthful subject. But if the subject says no for a bit longer than normal, then that would be interpreted also as deceptive subject. So it's the span of time that will be the basis in the word association test. So accordingly, there will be around 15 to 20 questions that will be asked to the subject, and these questions are composed of stimulus or non-stimulus, which means relevant, again, relevant or irrelevant question. So I want you to remember this, that in word association test, instead of relevant, they call it stimulus, and then non-stimulus. You might encounter this in one of the questions, so at least you know what do you mean by this. So it is expected, therefore, that when the non-stimulus, meaning irrelevant question, will be asked, the subject will answer immediately the question. So that's word association test. Okay, and then further explanation when the subject is asked questions with reference to his name, address. So these are examples of irrelevant or non-stimulus. So you have to ask like, are you single? Are you living in Trinidad? Are you a Filipino? So these are non-stimulus or irrelevant question, and then expected that they will respond quickly. That when the stimulus question is asked and they tend to be guilty, then it is expected that their response is lower. But when the questions bear some words which have to do with the criminal acts the subject allegedly committed, like knife, gun, or hammer, which was used in the killing, the tendency is to delay the answer. So that's it. So the test is not concerned with the answer, be it yes or no. The important factor is the time of response in relation to stimulus or non-stimulus words. Like the use of the lie detector, the subject cannot be compelled to be subjected to the test without his consent. So I've already mentioned that it's not a matter of, we do not care about whether the answer is yes or no. What actually matters is the span of time in answering. So yeah, you have to calculate how many seconds is the gap of answering the question. So the basis here is what's normal. Immediately, for example, if you ask a question like, is it true that your name is Lawrence? And then once you finish the question, automatically the subject will respond. That's normal. But little longer than normal, then that would be interpreted as deceptive subject. However, of course, this is not popular, and it has it can be questioned because of its universal acceptance. So you cannot also compel someone to undergo such kind of method of test. Alright, so we have here another one. I'm sorry, it's really itching here. So another one is psychological stress evaluator. So what is this? Or in short, we call it PSE. So PSE is actually method, and it is using a machine. So the machine is psychological stress evaluator. So what happened here is when a person speaks, there are audible voice frequencies, and superimposed on this are the inaudible frequency modulation, which are products of minute oscillations of the muscles of the voice mechanism. Such oscillations of the muscles microtremor occur at the rate of 8 to 14 cycles per second and controlled by the central nervous system. So what is this? So when we speak, there is actually inaudible voice that we cannot hear, and only the machine can hear it, and that machine is the psychological stress evaluator. So meaning, while I'm talking, there is also a hidden voice that you don't hear, but that could be heard by the machine. So that's the idea of that. And when the person is under stress, as when he is lying, so when the subject is lying, and because he is lying, he's under stress, the micro tremor in the voice utterance is moderately or completely suppressed. So meaning, when you are stressed because you are lying, this inaudible voice, meaning voice that cannot be heard, will tend to disappear. So meaning it will be completely suppressed when you are under stress. So that's the reason why they said that voice can be the basis in determining deception, because when you're lying and under stress, this inaudible voice will tend to disappear. It will be gone. So that's what PSE will record. The degree of suppression carries inversely to the degree of psychological stress in the speaker. The degree of suppression carries inversely to the degree of, so meaning the degree of suppression, so meaning there is also level of the degree of suppression. So in other words, the voice might not be totally suppressed, maybe moderately suppressed or completely suppressed, so something like this. There is a degree. It depends on the level of stress caused by deception. So the psychological stress evaluator detects, measures, and graphically displays the voice modulations that ear cannot hear. So it detects, and then it also measures and graphically displays. So we'll show later on what are those graphical display. So we are still on PSE. When a person is relaxed and responding honestly to the questions, those inaudible frequencies are registered clearly on the instrument. But when a person is under stress, as when he's lying, these frequencies tend to disappear. So this is what I was mentioning a while ago, that when you are honest, like right now I'm talking honestly, so this inaudible voice is present, but you cannot hear it, of course. But if I'm lying, this inaudible voice will disappear. Okay. So this is the example of the graphical presentation of the results of psychological stress evaluator. So we have here the first question was, I don't know if you can see this is irrelevant question, and if you notice here, it's like still solid, right? So meaning since it is irrelevant question, then there is still the presence of voice complete, so it's not totally suppressed. And then if you go to this sacrifice relevant question, a little bit related, you will notice that it seems that the degree of disappearance is there. And then we go to another irrelevant question. So you will notice also here that the voice is inaudible voice is completely present. It's solid on this part. And then we go to control question, which is considered as relevant question. You will also notice here, have you noticed that there is like spaces in between? That is the degree also of the inaudible voice. So meaning there is already suppression, it tends to disappear. The solid here of the voice, solid voice here, tends to disappear in this part, as shown by, you see the white, or there's already spaces in between the voices. The ink tends to have a gap already, and that is the sign that the inaudible voice has disappeared. If you go to another irrelevant question, you will notice here that it's solid, so the inaudible voice is completely present. And also in this part, so you will notice in the next is irrelevant question, you will notice here that there seems to be a gap also. There is already disappearance of inaudible voice. And then much more here, you will notice that there is a gap again. This is relevant question. While in the last one, the irrelevant question, you will notice that there seems to be no more gaps in between the edges of this tracing. So though there seems to be still little, but the degree is not as high as in here. So that's the basis in determining whether the subject is deceptive or not, in as far as PSE is concerned. So that is one method. I don't know if you like it, I don't know if you agree with it, but they said it is possible. Alright, so we have here the procedure similar to polygraph test. Examiner also will meet the requesting party to determine the specific purpose of the examination and to begin formulation of the relevant questions. Then pre-test interviews will be conducted. meaning pre-test, before the test will be conducted. The subject will also be asked with questions and determine if he is also qualified to undergo polygraph test, PSE test or not. So I'm not gonna dwell much on here. Let's insert to the next slide. So this is also the number of the questions that will be asked. It could be 12 to 15 questions, also answerable by yes or no. Immediately following the test or at later time, the tape is processed through the psychological stress evaluator for analysis. If stress indicated, the subject is given opportunity to provide additional clarification. Every test is also given correction and clarification. So the procedure here is that the subject will be asked with 12 to 15 questions, and the voice will be recorded, and then they will let the machine, the PSE, hear it. So unlike in polygraph tests where you have to connect a lot of things in the body, so it's really scary for a first-time subject, but in a PSE, it's not scary because you just ask a question and then record it and then let the machine listen to it and interpret by it. So even if you are interviewing someone on the phone or far distance, it's okay. Unlike polygraph test where you have to meet personally the subject. So that's one of the advantages also of the PSE. And so if it really works, wow, that could be another breakthrough for the detection of deception. However, this has been also being used in the past and it didn't become popular. So because of the it's very difficult to believe that through the use of voice you can already conclude if someone is telling the truth or not. So that is PSE. And another one is the use of drugs that inhibit the inhibitor. So here you just simply give the subject with kind of drug, in that drug is called truth serum, because it is called truth serum because they believe that when you give that, ask a question and automatically the person you are interrogating will definitely give you the right answer, because his real being, he himself is lost. It was already inhibited by drugs. So what only comes out, whatever is his experience or observed or saw in the past, he would just tell it to you. That's why they call it truth serum, because once you took or will take that drug, it's like make you drunk and then ask you something, what you will narrate is what you have just seen or observed. So what is this? They just give you kind of drug. And then we have also narco analysis. Drug also will be given, and then the other one toxic. So we'll discuss that in the next slide. So we have this, the truth serum. This is what already I've been mentioning a while ago. So remember this. This is a favorite question. What kind of drug is being used in truth serum? Is the hyoscine hydrobromide that will inhibit, meaning will make you forget who you are, and then they will begin to ask questions. So this is it. He forgets his alibi, which may have built up to cover his guilt. He may give details of his acts or even implicate others. So this, the good thing here is, since the subject will forget himself, he would tell you everything. course, this is illegal, and they only use this for intelligence purposes, but it's still one way of detecting deception. And then the other one that also inhibits inhibitor is called narcoanalysis. It's still giving kind of drug, but it's another. They use psychiatric sodium amytal or sodium pentothal. So I don't know how this work, but the difference between truth serum is just the kind of drug. But both of them, narcoanalysis and truth serum, are both using kind of drugs. So the same procedure, you give this kind of drug and then begin to ask him a question. And the administration of the drug in subsequent interrogation must be done by psychiatrists along with experience on the line. So it's not just anyone who will do it, because there is also procedures that you have to do, and of course analyze the logic and study also physiological activities, such as how the subject move, look his eyes, etc. You observe him also, and it really requires psychiatrists to interpret even the language and how the subject acts. And then the other one is called intoxication. So use of alcohol is also a method of detecting deception. So I don't know with your experience, but to my experience, I got drunk as well when I was young. Now I don't drink liquor. I only taste it once in a blue moon. But when you are under influence of alcohol, there are two things that you may do. You may lie, or you may tell the truth. So I have experienced that I told the truth even though it's embarrassing, because I already forgot myself. And when you lost already control of yourself, maybe you will tell the truth, or if not, you will tell something that is not actually true. So it depends, but this could be one. So if you want to determine if someone is lying or not, then invite him and let him drink a lot of liquor. But what's over him, he might, kill himself. So I think better not. All of these are illegal, of course, but it could be possible. That's why they call wine in vino veritas. In wine there is truth, which of course I generally agree, although partially there is also truth in it, but very few people are actually truthful when they are under influence of liquor. Most of them are actually lying. So if they courted you when you are under influence of liquor, be careful. Confessions, I think we'll also skip this part. So okay, so that is this also okay. And then last for this slides, for this session, hypnosis is also one. This is like kind of use of magic trick for the person to forget himself. I don't know also how this works, but there's some kind of trick that will be done here, where the person will also alter some consciousness and concentration, in which the subject manifests a heightened of suggestibility while awareness is maintained. We have heard already a lot of stories where some people try to steal money from someone by altering consciousness. They do something else, and then the person will forget also himself and then tell the truth. So we call this as people who are hypnotized, and I don't know exactly how it gonna work, but I heard already many who have been victim of it. I don't know if they use drugs or they smell drugs, but others are really capable of doing this, where by simply asking you or talking to you, and then you just can't believe that they already took something from you. You forgot who you are. My nephew was a victim of this, and So I kind of believe it also, but not all. I think it's not gonna work. But if there are professionals who are doing this, this could be one of the methods of detecting deception. Of course, all of this, almost all of these are not admissible as evidence in court, including polygraph tests. The reasons for all of these methods that we have just discussed: lacks general scientific acceptance. For example, you use magic trick, so that's not scientifically accepted. And also putting drugs or uh, or requiring the subject to drink liquor, so it's not also scientifically or universally accepted. So the fear that the trier of fact will give uncritical and absolute reliability to a scientific device without consideration of its flaw in ascertaining veracity. So even polygraph machine belongs to this, that the machine will be the basis in determining if someone is lying or not is also questionable, because there is still flaw in ascertaining veracity. So what else? Like for example, the hypnotized person. So we have already mentioned that as well. Okay, so these are the reasons why it's not acceptable. So I think yeah, okay. So end we will end here for a while, and we will go to the fourth session. So another recording will be done